Hello everyone, welcome back to English Champion. I have a short weekend episode for you here today, and I want to talk about writing in its shortened form. Tweets, notes, even in video form, shorts, reels, all that stuff, because I noticed something this week that this is sort of a problem, and we need to talk about it, and so that we can improve from it. So I'm a big fan of Gurwinder's Prism Substack, and I saw that he had made a post in the notes function here on Substack earlier this week, and it sort of surprised me a little bit, and it caught me off guard, and so I wanted to show it to you. And here's what he said. If you really want to understand a topic, don't read about it, write about it. The act of explaining something helps you connect the dots and commit them to memory far better than the passive act of reading. So I saw that and I thought, well, he's a smart guy. Does he know that what he's saying is not quite clear enough or accurate enough for what I think he means? And the people in the comments below had a variety of opinions. As you can see, he gets as you saw on the screenshot, there's a lot of likes, and so he's a very popular writer, and so he's doing well. But in the comments below, there were some questions and problems with what he said, and it ranged from being very supportive, such as, the kind of platitudes of "so smart, such great insight," to explaining how this idea has sort of been useful in their own life. So true, I've actually gained my own opinions or impressions of a particular issue while writing about it. So that's good. Another person said, in college, I discovered that outlining chapters was the sure way to commit the info to memory for quizzes and tests. That's good. So yeah, taking notes and writing while you read, that's smart. In college, I would prepare for a test by preparing a lecture that I would give to myself. So much more effective. That's smart. And so that sort of fits with what a lot of other people said regarding sort of using teaching to help you learn the material better. So a lot of people said, if you want to learn something more deeply, teach it to someone else. So these are all very good ideas, and a lot of that's true. What Gurwinder is saying here is not particularly unique or deep or profound or insightful, actually. People have been saying this for a very long time, famous authors. I tell my students, Flannery O'Connor, I think Joan Didion, and I'm sure many others have said something similar to this, which is the clearer way of putting this note that he wrote, that these other authors have said, is something like, I don't know what I think about a topic until I write about it. And that's a little different than what he said. He said, if you really want to understand a topic, don't read about it, write about it. Well, we have to think, well, how do you know anything in the first place before you have read about it? I mean, it could be something that you've experienced or that you heard from somewhere, but you have to learn it from somewhere else first. He's sort of confusing the connection between understanding and writing. Really what it should be is more, my thinking gets more clear when I write about it. The understanding part, writing doesn't necessarily help you understand or learn something. You have to sort of understand it first, and then the writing process helps clarify that understanding for you. And so a lot of people sort of caught on to this in the comments below. So while there were many that were supportive, some people kind of attempted to clarify his post by saying, reading is not a passive activity, which is sort of half true. It can be a passive activity. Your brain is still working very hard when it reads, but you can also read on a very superficial level, and it does feel quite passive. But if you're reading correctly, and if you're reading to learn and to understand, then it's definitely not a passive activity. So again, Gurwinder's sort of equating all reading to being passive, and that's just not the case. Another person said it might be good to read about it before you write, but I guess that's what you mean. So this person's trying to help the writer clarify, because what he wrote was actually a little confusing. It was intended to be this brilliant insight and this pithy comment, and how a great piece of wisdom in this short 2 sentences, and it actually caused confusion, as this person rightly points out. Another person was questioning the idea by saying, if you have decent training in writing, this might work, but many don't, including far too many who went to college, and not necessarily because their teachers didn't try to teach them either. So that's probably true as well, that just by writing about something doesn't automatically make you understand it. You also have to be pretty good at writing so that you can organize your own thoughts and choose the right words, and then maybe you can help yourself understand the topic or clarify your thinking on it better. But if you don't know how to write properly, you just sitting down and writing or sitting there typing doesn't automatically mean you're going to grasp the material better. So lots of good alternative ideas here in the comments section from this post. Others went further still and went to complete disagreement and sarcasm. Someone wrote, "This is complete and utter nonsense." I don't know if it's complete nonsense, but it's not completely truthful, that's for sure. And this person had took the idea to its extreme, which is smart. He said, "Awesome. Can't wait to start writing about the law and start taking in all those dollars as a lawyer. Can I learn brain surgery this way too?" So again, they're right that you can't just learn stuff by sitting down and writing. I mean, you can't ask a 9-year-old to learn physics by just having them sit down and go, "Start writing about physics and you'll learn it and you'll understand it." That doesn't make any sense. You have to read or listen from some outside source to then start the process of understanding, and then you can start writing about it, which will enhance your understanding afterwards. So this is the problem with short writing, all right? Tweets, these kinds of posts, little quotes that we just see everywhere. It's like, it's partly right, but there's way more nuance to this that you're missing. You're trading pithiness for real clarity, and these people in the comment section have caught on to it. Here's what this really looks like. All right, let me give you a clear example so that we don't just fall into a trap of following a pithy quote, that we actually understand what happens in your brain when you write while you're trying to understand something. All right. So a couple years ago, I was in one of my classes, and I was helping a student with his writing. He was working on some paper that was arguing a position. I don't even remember what his topic was, but it was something argumentative. And so, he had kind of a personal investment in it because it was something he thought he believed in. And so we were working on this essay, and I was going through some paragraphs with him, and he showed me a passage, and I read it to him, and I said, after reading it out loud, I said, "Okay, I see what you're saying here, but what about this example? Does what you said here fit with this other example?" And he kind of thought about it for a minute, and he thought, well, no, and he needed to rework the sentence to also include this other example. And so he did that, and he worked on some more, and I looked at it again, and I said, "Okay, so you're saying this, but what about this though?" And he goes, "Ah, you're right. Okay, let me try it again." And so we did this probably 4 or 5 times. And after it probably took 20, 30 minutes to go through these various iterations, he finally kind of put his head in his hands and was sighing deeply. And he said, "Dr. Spivey, writing makes me rethink my morals." And I said, "Exactly. Exactly right." And he kind of was surprised because I was telling him he did something right. And he goes, "What do you mean about this topic?" And I said, "About every topic. Writing helps you rethink no matter what the topic is." And so I walked through with him. He's like, "Well, what do you mean?" So I walked through with him what was happening in his own brain that he didn't even realize, okay? He was just getting more frustrated. What was happening actually was he was understanding his own ideas and his own beliefs better. How? Every time he had to write the new sentence, the new paragraph, whatever we were working on, what he has to do, what all writers have to do is, and why writing works so well, is you see your idea now, or the thing you think, on the page, on the screen, wherever you wrote it. And you have to look at it. It now exists in sort of a hard copy form. It's not just floating around in your brain and you think, all right, here's what I think about this topic. I think I understand it. And you can kind of rationalize your way into it and think, yeah, I sort of get it. I know it well enough. When you write it, it forces you to purposefully choose words. First of all, that's the first level. You have to actually apply your own language to the idea. You have to take it from the abstract and make it concrete. And so then it's on the page or on the screen, and you have to look at it. It's staring back at you, your own words. And now they're in black and white. And so there creates this objectivity, this distance that you didn't have when you were just sort of pondering it in your brain while you were reading, while you were listening to a lecture, wherever the ideas were coming in that you were trying to learn. Now you produced it and it's staring back at you. And you have to look at it and go, do I actually think that? Do I actually believe what I just wrote? Are those the right words for what I think I understand? Is what I wrote truthful? Do I actually believe that? And if you really interrogate it and you discover, yes, that is what I mean, that is true to the best of my knowledge, and I agree with that. Okay, great. Then you go on to the next thing you want to write, the next paragraph or the next sentence. But like the student I was working with, if you look at it and you go, well, that's still not exactly what I believe, then you got to rework it, rewrite it. And then you look at it again. Is that what I actually believe? Is that true? Does that apply the way I think I'm trying to make it apply in this situation? If not, you keep doing it. So that's where the learning comes in. That's where the understanding occurs that Gurwinder was attempting to write about. It's not that you just write and therefore I understand something. You can't manifest knowledge in your brain just by, holding a pencil. You have to have some foundation of the idea or the knowledge in the first place. But the writing, it helps you understand because, again, it creates an objective stance or perspective that wasn't there before when it's just in your brain. And it forces you to re-examine your own thoughts that are very hard to do just in your, in your thought processes. So having it on the page is what helps you. So that, I think, is what he means when he says, if you really want to understand a topic, don't read about it, write about it. He's wrong by saying don't read about it. You need to read, or you need to gather your information from somewhere. But the writing about it does help clarify your thoughts, which leads to the understanding that he's talking about. So when he says helps connect the dots and commit them to memory, yeah, that's probably true. But it's the clarification of your thoughts that you accomplish through writing that is so valuable. And so as writing professors, this is what I've spent much of my career trying to do, is get students to realize that, yeah, we need to read. You need to listen to your teachers. Whoever's trying to give you knowledge and information, you need to listen. But it's through the writing process, as Gurwinder's trying to point out here, that you actually clarify what you think about that idea. And yeah, you'll remember it longer, but you'll also strengthen your view on it and be able to, as he said, connect the dots and implement that knowledge now in a variety of areas because you've clarified the thoughts to yourself. And now you can clarify them to the rest of the world. So this was just a really good example of how writing something in this short little post can sound smart, but when you look at it more closely, it's only partially accurate and it needs a lot more nuance. And so this is, while the tweetification and the notesification and the YouTube shortsification and the Instagram reelsification of the world has some positives to it. We like things in short bursts. It also has huge problems. Why? Because by forcing everything into this short little space, it forces the writers to have to condense a really big, important idea down to just a few words. And it's not always that correct. Maybe in a big article or a full-length video where you have the time to explain the nuances of your position, that's probably where the accuracy is. But in 140 characters or in a little Substack note or on a little Instagram reel, is that the reality? Is that the truth? Or are you missing a lot because you condensed it down so much? So I think there's a couple levels that happen here. We can have these short little posts that, sometimes they hit the mark and they say something that's totally true and it only needed a few words, and that's great. And I think that's probably what everyone's aiming at. That's what we'd all like to do. But what happened here, and I think what happens in a lot of those short formats, is you're sort of partially right. And so, yeah, you caught my attention, but what you said was only kind of half correct. Worse than that, which also people do, is it just becomes more confusing, where people look at it and go, wait, what exactly are you saying here? Is there supposed to be more to this idea? Because this doesn't sound like this is enough. What is this about? And then worse still is when it's flat out wrong. All right. So Gurwinder's not there, and I don't think he's being that confusing, but he's at kind of at the first level where it sort of sounds right, but it's not completely right. So this is what happens in the attempt to make everything shorter to get eyeballs on it as quickly as possible. You end up sacrificing a lot of what is true and real, and you're missing some of the details of what really matter. I hear this a lot from people like Chris Williamson, who, again, I watch his podcast all the time. He's very smart and interviews lots of smart people. And he says a lot, his thing he talks about a lot is meme first, explain later. And that's kind of what this is. It's such a bad idea. I feel sad every time he says it, because what that does is it reduces everything to something that's really pithy. It tries to be really clever. You try to sound really profound, even though it's probably not. It just reduces complexity down to something that isn't as useful as it could be. And his explanation is, well, you want to get their attention first and get the idea in their mind, and then you can kind of explain it to them later. And that's the best case scenario. Because more likely is, well, you're sort of only partly true, or you're just being confusing, or you're flat out wrong. It's not even accurate. So you're really walking a tightrope when you're trying to meme first, explain later, or make a career out of just, doing short tweets and trying to just get people's attention. Neil Postman talked about this years ago. If you read Neil Postman 40 years ago, he talked about that problem exactly, because he was talking about it with television. That, if we're in this 30-second commercial world, then everything gets reduced to how quickly can I get your attention? It doesn't even matter if what it is that I'm trying to sell you is any good or whether it's even accurate. I just need your attention for 30 seconds. Or that we see it on when news programming on television became so ubiquitous. It's just, everything became a 2-minute soundbite or a 2-minute interview or a 30-second soundbite. It's like, I need to interview this politician on the complexity of the war in Ukraine. You have 2 minutes, go. Like, that's not how our brains work. You can't analyze an important topic in 2 minutes or in a 30-second soundbite. That's ridiculous. And so this is what happens in text form on Twitter or in Substack Notes or elsewhere, is everything gets reduced, everything gets oversimplified, and we're missing the nuance that would actually make it true. So I understand why we do it. I even participate myself. I do these things. But before I ever click post, I'm very, very careful to do what I always ask my students to do, which is look at it and go, is this actually what I mean to say? Is this actually truthful? If someone reads this, are they going to be confused by this? Are they going to think I'm flat out wrong and inaccurate? Is there any way this message, this tweet, this Substack note, this post could go wrong? Am I only trying to get someone's attention rather than to convey actual wisdom? These are all the things that our internet culture rewards, sadly. And I understand this is where we're at. But I just want everybody to be very careful, especially young writers out there, when we assume that everything needs to be condensed into its short tweet version. A lot gets lost in that translation from a full article length or book length idea down to a 2-sentence bite. And you can have the appearance of looking smart, but with any scrutiny at all, it comes off as going, I don't think you actually know what you're talking about here. So again, Gurwinder's very smart. Go read his stuff. His long articles are much better and worth reading. But this is just to explain that everyone, even good writers and good thinkers like he is, can fall into this trap of choosing to pursue attention rather than real clarity or truth. So be careful of that in your writing. Keep working on your short form writing and making sure that it's very clear. But really, it's for the service of longer form writing so that we can convey as much wisdom and nuance and detail as we possibly can. Hope that helps. That's all for today. See you next time.